One Uptown TV. Yo, enough there, me I represent. Bang.
Being representing a man for Uptown TV.
Bad we bad we bad. Bad we bad gas.
Experiencing the rapid convergence of the digital technologies, and whether actively or passively, we, especially as Africans, our responsibility is to be mindful in all of what's happening around us. The convergence of the digital technologies has led to a whole slew of things, and we have moved beyond what we even thought would have been possible in this fourth industrial revolution. We've probably gone into the fifth, if you ask me. But one of the things that we cannot allow ourselves or allow to happen to us is for our minds to be swept away and trapped in a data pool, in this AI, reality, or virtual, if you will, reality. We want to speak to that as time goes by, because there is such a danger of being trapped in this virtual reality, which is not really a reality. Artificial intelligence, which is not artificial or intelligent at all, but anti-intelligence. I think we owe it to ourselves to begin to understand the extent to which this is anti-intelligence as opposed to artificial intelligence. And when we talk about anti-intelligence, and I come back to that, because I think it's something that more and more we're going to have a conversation about. Because when we say something is artificial, something is fake, we're thinking of something that can replace something, and it can probably work, and we can use it without any kinds of problems. But this is a whole different kettle of tea. This is anti-intelligence. The A should really stand for anti and not artificial. And I'll have a conversation about that as time goes on, as I develop this concept, because I know others have said it before me, because, this kind of just hit me. And one of the things I did was to look to see if it was out there already. So it's universality of thought. Not much, to be frank, not much, but there's some who are talking about this. And I think that we owe it to ourselves to have that conversation about artificial intelligence versus anti-intelligence. Because the bottom line is that when you say artificial intelligence, you're talking about something that was originally conceptualized to simulate human intelligence. And they use machines to do that, and the technologies to do that. And so we have the machines now and the technology that can reason, that is learning from us, and that is adapting as it goes along. And the goal of that, if you look at this closely, the goal of that was to replicate aspects of the human understanding. So problem solving, the machine will do that for we now. Language understanding, remember you can't just turn on your phone now and say it, speak into it, and it, but even differently. Not just language in terms of whether you speak French or Spanish or Swahili or so any of the Bantu languages. And the Bantu languages are not being translated. But language in terms of a language that's used by these computers. Coding, if you will. And how it recognizes patterns. So obviously that is what we mean when we're talking about artificial intelligence. But anti-intelligence, it doesn't mean the absence of intelligence. It means something that is undermining, or something that opposes, or something that is against anything that is authentic, anything that is critical, any deep thinking or any kind of human-centered reasoning. And we could go deeper into this. Intuition, how we make meaning, how we understand things, how we make meaning of things. And this is a problem with what they're calling artificial intelligence, because this artificial intelligence, this AI, the ultimate aim and objective of this is to displace and to erode or to at least inhibit human intelligence. It doesn't enhance it. You notice how everybody talking alike now? Because they're not using their own intelligence. And you can know when it is this homogeneous artificial intelligence, because it speaks in a particular way. So everybody's talking alike. Everybody's writing you an email that sound alike. Everybody's sending you a text that sound alike. It's just, there's just something that is happening to us as a people, where we are becoming, even in the way we're talking like the machine. So we have abdicated intelligence, our ability to think. And our young people are caught up in this in a very, very serious way. Adults are doing it too, because if you see what's happening online, everybody's publishing a book. There are so many books out now. Oh goodness, poetry coming at me left, right, and center. The thing is that you can tell when it's a machine that is writing the poetry. You can tell. For somebody like me who does research, I know when it's not you write the poetry. Do not send it to me. I know you never write it. And even if I don't say, I know you never write it. I might not say, because I don't know, but I know you didn't write it. And the many books that's coming out now that you're throwing at me, when I read the first chapter, and I know you never write it. And all these books that are coming out now with workbooks, this is how the AI operates. So it write the book for you and it give you a workbook. Everybody have a workbook. And you read the book and you know you never write it. So stop with this. And the thing that I'd like for us to be aware of is the extent to which we're giving up our ability to think, to reason, to make meaning of things. And we're losing our minds and losing our senses and losing ourselves and becoming one big pool of robots controlled, that are we the human beings, controlled by this beast-like thing, OpenAI or DeepSeek or you name it. What are we becoming? This is ridiculous. Listen, we cannot abdicate thinking. We cannot give up on critical thinking. We cannot give up on thinking for ourselves, on reasoning things out for ourselves. Our dependence on artificial intelligence is too great. It's too much. And we're becoming homogenous. The entire world. What's the end result of this? Where are we going with this? Is this what happened to the people of Sumer? Because they were a great civilization and they're no more. Is this what happened to Mesopotamia? Is this what happened to Kemet? I don't know. What's happening to us? We cannot allow ourselves to be taken over by artificial intelligence, which is really anti-intelligence. Anti-intelligence. This, whatever this is, its aim and objective is to inhibit intelligence, is to stop critical thinking, is to think on your behalf. Not intelligence, but intelligent about that. What about your intelligence? If you got something thinking for you, writing for you, doing some people have whole thesis. I see some things on social media, it's crazy. Some people have entire blogs. And everybody sound alike. So we have to be mindful. Or we'll be trapped in this data pool, which is at the same time controlled by the colonizers. And these colonizers' existence is in is linked to the African continent. We Africans are standing in their way. Mia Motley talk about at the CARICOM summit. She pointed to the fact that there are those who are still thinking colonization and that they will do it if we allow them. And that's true. So we've got natural intelligence. We've developed this over millennia. Ancestral, natural, cultural evolution that has allowed us to survive. And this is ingrained in our genetic memories. This is what has allowed us to survive the Ma'afa, to survive until today and to be thriving until today. On artificial intelligence, what is going to happen to your brain? Recognized, if you saw the U.S. President Donald Trump hosting a 3-day mini summit at the White House with 5 African leaders from Gabon, from Gabon, Guinea-Bissau, Liberia, Senegal, and Mauritania. I don't know if you saw that. Gunboat diplomacy, colonial theater. It's reminiscent of the 1955 Bandung Conference. Look it up. That gone. And also we saw, and also the early Cold War negotiations. It felt like one of those things, trans-imperial. Liberia was present. Liberia is a settler colonial project in Africa. It is. And Donald Trump did not recognize that, right? Donald Trump didn't recognize that and asked the Liberian president why I'm talking so good, because I'm taught good English. It's a theater. It's a colonial theater. And for many of us who saw that, we are still laughing. There's some people who are very upset about it. I know, I've heard you're very upset, but I find it really funny. I find it really funny. There's some news outlet like Al Jazeera who talked about it being a staged subordination at the White House. July 9 it happened. And the style of the forum for discussion was kind of a summit, but it served, it was carefully orchestrated, and it was a display in which we saw Donald Trump dictating the narrative. And the African presidents were relegated to subordinate roles. African presidents who are coming into Donald Trump's presence are finding themselves licking his boots, literally going down and licking his boots. It is this colonial era, hierarchical diplomacy. It's phenomenal to see how the African presidents are responding. It's phenomenal. A lot of people are upset and shocked at what happened with Senegal, because Senegal was there. But hey, no, we're not. I remember I said in this space before that, well, I raised a question at least, that when we shouldn't compare Senegal to Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso was a military coup. Senegal was an election. Am I saying elections are bad? No, I'm just saying whoever put him in power is responsible for him. I'm just saying. So it was a public humiliation again. The African leaders who went there, it was a public humiliation. There was no dignity. It's almost as if they had a false choice whether to cause their country's economic harm if they showed that they had some dignity, or so they made a decision between that and to lose their moral stance, and they decided to lick the boots of Donald Trump. We're not surprised at all, if you will, not surprised. They say it's pragmatism. They've gone back to their country and they've talked about balancing this diplomacy and pragmatism and all of that. So they've said a lot since they've gone back. But really and truly, it's really the U.S. that's pivoting from aid and now talking about trade. So everybody's talking about pivoting, and the U.S. is also doing it. So the Trump administration has, as you know, so they've dismantled U.S. aid. We agree with that. U.S. aid comes with a bomb. It's not even aid, it is a bomb, a colonial bomb. And so these countries that became so dependent on the handout, Liberia, for example, had some almost 3% of the GDP coming from U.S. handout, what them call USAID. And so now they find themselves on the back foot, and that's why they're licking the boots of Donald Trump. If you put this in historical context, this is anything new. It's just that we're seeing it playing out, right? Colonial diplomacy, it is what it is. We're just seeing it playing out because Donald Trump brought the cameras there. Usually this licking of the boots happens behind the scene. So I don't know. As I said, they've gone back to their countries and they've said all kinds of stuff about, what it is that they were doing and why it was important for them to lick the boots of Donald Trump, if you will. So yeah, we're kind of following that, but not with any, fine-tooth comb. It's just another day in the United States. Also looking at, there's a story in the Jamaica Observer. I don't know if you've seen it. Titled, I think, What's Lurking in Your Rice Bags or in a Bag of Rice. The Jamaica Observer article talked about an international report revealing that many rice brands sold in the USA contains damaging, let me just get it right. Let me get this right, since I'm quoting from the newspaper. They said the rice brands sold in the U.S. contain dangerously high levels of organic arsenic and cadmium, substances linked to cancer, kidney damage, developmental delays, and other health issues. Check that story, What's Lurking in a Bag of Rice. It's in the Jamaica Observer. It was published on July 10, and it also says, several tested rice products exceeded FDA limits for arsenic in infant cereal, raising alarm for vulnerable groups such as infants, toddlers, and pregnant women. And health experts are warning that chronic consumption of contaminated rice may lead to long-term consequences, particularly for low-income Jamaicans relying heavily on rice-based meals. The article emphasizing the urgent need for public health education and regulatory oversight. So ask about this and read a story for yourself, but also ask about this to see the extent to which we are getting rice from the U.S. and what the brands are. We're going to discuss later Prime Minister of Barbados, Mia Mottley's speech at CARICOM. One of the things she did was to warn of a threat to sovereignty of Caribbean nations. She also warned that Caribbean nations cannot confront escalating violence, gun proliferation, and transnational crime with outdated justice systems or isolated national efforts. So we're going to go through that with Professor Darius Figueroa later on. She was speaking at the 49th meeting of the Conference of Heads of Government of CARICOM at the Montego Bay Convention Center. So stand by for that discussion that's coming up later. We talked about AI earlier, but there is a story out there. I haven't gone through that story yet, but I know it's out there, especially in the tech world. It says experts are saying, there was this expert who was on the Joe Rogan show, and he said that AI systems may be hiding their capabilities to speed up our destruction. Well, I laugh, but not really. I think you should go check that out. Another thing that we're watching is what's coming out of the BRICS Rio Summit, the 17th BRICS Summit that happened in Rio, in Brazil. just wrapped up a few days ago, the 17th BRICS Summit, and the leaders concluded this two-day summit in Rio de Janeiro. They said they achieved a consensus across a sweeping agenda, including global governance, security, health, climate, artificial intelligence, and sustainable development. And out of the BRICS summit, we heard the United States President, Donald Trump, he has now threatened a new 10% tariff on countries aligning with BRICS. And this, of course, is kind of just underscoring the pushback that the BRICS is getting from the United States. So the 126 commitments they adopted at BRICS in a joint declaration entitled Strengthening Global South Cooperation for More Inclusive and Sustainable Governance. BRICS committed to multilateral cooperation across three pillars: politics and security, economy and finance, and cultural and people-to-people initiatives. This is really great. And if you go beyond this, because this cooperation, especially for politics and security and economy and finance, it means a lot when you think of what's happening with de-dollarization, you think of what's happening with the SWIFT system, and also for politics and security, when you look at what America is about to do, because they have now said the discussion at least is happening, that they will be providing weapons to Ukraine to use against Russia, but that NATO will pay for those weapons. Whether this is so or not, NATO, and this is the US president saying NATO will pay for those weapons. This is World War III. Maybe not in the way you expected it, but going beyond the surface of this, if NATO pays for that, this is a war. We've always said it was a war between NATO and Russia. Now, with what's coming out of BRICS, the politics and security cooperation, this means that many other countries, including China, well, I don't know about India, because India is a wild card. India is such a hypocrite. And all the others that have joined, including Iran, but so many others as well, Pakistan and all of them, that this means if this happens, then this is just going to widen the war, and there is nuclear consideration at stake. So coming out of BRICS, they have underscored 126 commitments, and one is on politics and security. The other is economy and finance, right? And of course, cultural and people-to-people initiatives. Think about that. They've also the bloc has also called for urgent reforms of major multilateral institutions. So they've called for urgent reform to the United Nations. Well, I'll say scramble and scrap and dismantle the United Nations, the United Nations Security Council. They've called for urgent reform of the United Nations Security Council. They've called for urgent reforms of the International Monetary Fund. I say, bond the International Monetary Fund. They've called for urgent reform of the World Bank and the World Trade Organization. And they say these reforms are needed urgently to better reflect the economic weight of emerging and developing markets. And they have also demanded quota realignment of the IMF and the World Bank. So some serious things coming out of the BRICS. Whether or not you're skeptical about the BRICS, these issues that are coming out at this time will mean something. Let me take a quick break. And the end game of liberal democracy, that's happening right before our eyes. Project 2025 is being rolled out. Don't know if you've read it yet. We read it. We told you that the thing to do long before the election, we told you to read Project 2025. I hope that you did. If not, go read it, because everything that's happening in the United States right now was planned. This was meant to happen. This is Project 2025. All that's happening. whether it's tariff, whether it's Medicaid, whether it's, it doesn't matter. I mean, immigration, the whole thing. What do you know about the Heritage Foundation? The Heritage Foundation is set up in Margaret Thatcher's name. And the people who are there, a lot of them are right-wing neocons and so on and so forth. But they authored Project 2025. The Dark Enlightenment, you're going to have to do some reading on your own. We've talked about that before. So that's a big thing that's happening. One of the reasons why I brought that up this morning is that so many of you have written in, you've sent me email, you've sent me text, and you've also called to say, what do you think about ABCD and what does it relate to? It relates to the Dark Enlightenment. It relates to Project 2025. It is what it is. Another thing we're watching right here at home, obviously the elections are in high gear. We don't have the date yet. It don't look like them all call it August. It look like it's early September. I don't know if that is responsible talk, but hey, I've gone back and looked at the history of how them call elections in Jamaica. I couldn't find one election that was called in August. If you find one, tell me. I probably missed it. But I went on the electoral office website, and I don't remember seeing an August election. But I know that a lot of elections have been in September, early September, middle September. Some said they don't want to they probably won't do it during school time. We don't know. But anyway, they are campaigning like it's 1999. And it's like the election is tomorrow. They have, when you go across, when last you go through, it was shot me go through again. Where was I? Which parish? And which parish is it that they've got orange and green cloth just tie up everywhere? The bridges, I think is true not to be in them places here. All the bridges are decorated with orange and green cloth. The cloth them cut in a strip in a triangle, and them blowing in the breeze, and you think it's carnival and festival. Everywhere there's a green cloth, there's an orange cloth. Everywhere there's orange cloth, there is a whole heap of cloth. And I think that we should take them cloth there and tie them up together and do something with them to those who are corrupt and otherwise and so forth and so on. Anyway, but there's just a whole lot of cloth, and it is ridiculous. I'd like to know what the bill is for all them cloth there. Anyway, campaigning is in full gear. They're talking about they're rolling out every plan they've ever had. I think they shouldn't politicize. I'm so frustrated to see them politicizing the school bus situation. So if they're rolling out school buses, we need these. And I don't think we should politicize them at all. No matter who win, if you have the idea for get the school buses in the place, get them and pick them out of the politics. I know you think it's just about buses, but it's also about the children. So that's so bad. But everything else is everything is politics. Wow. They're giving land titles left, right, and center. By the way, what about the land titles up in Runaway Bay, over upon the hill when you reach the stoplight at Salem? Them land they say long time and the people them don't get them title. Who is the MP? Land titles are give away crazily now, And so if you bought a piece of land up there in Salem Runaway Bay, when you reach the stoplight right in front of Sharky's, that land where you turn left, I don't remember what that community the name. When you turn left, if you're going towards Runaway Bay, and drive inside, that land on the hill that you're looking up on there, all of that land was sold. And years now, probably going into 10 years, and nobody not getting a title for those lands. So this is a good time to give those people their titles. Who are running up there so now? Who are the people running? Who up there so? Runaway Bay is who? Text me and tell me, please. Another thing we're watching is the way Jamaica's marine environment is being polluted. I want to bring something to your attention because we were just driving across Robins Bay. Robins Bay is one of my favorite places in the entire world. That little community. Good morning to the people of Robins Bay. That little hamlet. I could just live in Robins Bay and don't go nowhere and just stand up on the craggy rocks overlooking the sea, and sometime where I can jump, I jump, and when I can't jump, I jump. I just love Robins Bay, like from you enter Robins Bay all the way to Strawberry Fields and beyond. That place is my heart, is part of my heartbeat. I'm so saddened to see the extent of the sargassum, the damage to the coastline in Robins Bay. I am committed, and my daughter and myself, we have made the commitment to be part of the solution on this. So we're looking at how that will work. We have already written the proposals and so on to the necessary agencies. But there has to be some cleaning up. There are areas where the cleaning up is happening, but I don't think they can clean up fast enough. So they need resources, and they need commitment. The entire Robins Bay coastline is going to be decimated if it's not dealt with urgently. We see it happening already. I have all the videos to show, so I'll be showing those, but I've made them part of the proposal that I'm sending out. But the sargassum, it's not just Robins Bay. It is Port Maria. Jamaica is an island. It is right along the coast, and we understand what's happening with the sargassum. We understand it's coming from, the changes to the ocean and whatever is causing those changes. There are many reasons for that. People are pointing to climate change, etc., etc. But just to say, we're having a problem. It is urgent. It is an existential crisis. It's an existential crisis not just for the damage to the coastline, because we can see the damage in real time. You have to see what's happening in Robins Bay. Entire coastlines have already been damaged because there's no cleaning up. But also, there is an issue with what's happening with the fish, what's happening to the sea life, and so on. I hear people talk about this can be fertilizer, this can be so much, but there's arsenic in this, and cadmium also, cadmium. So there is a caution. We're doing the research on this. We see there's a caution coming from the scientists as to how you collect this and what you do with it. But there's also biomethane that can be had from this, and we see Barbados already doing getting power from this and so on. Not just Barbados, but other Caribbean countries, because Jamaica is not the only country that's affected, It's the entire Caribbean. But to underscore, Robins Bay in St. Mary, Port Maria all the way to Anota Bay into Robins Bay. But I'm underscoring Robins Bay this morning, that we see an existential crisis happening in Robins Bay that needs urgent attention. I'm going to take a break. We can't get through much more this morning regarding the news that we're following, but please help me to bring attention to what's happening with the sargassum across Jamaica. And if you can, I'm not sure that we can just go clean up like that. We need resources, we need help. But the communities have to first of all mobilize, and then let's ask for the resources, all right? So we have King Kimani and we have Rastafari Siba. Greetings.
Greetings, Empress.
Oh, we're not hearing. We're only hearing one person. Let me see now. Does that make a difference? No. Rastafari?
Greetings, Empress.
All right. And King Kimani?
Come on.
And I should know that it's come on. Come on, grab your mic.
Come on was the name of my next son that's to come. So
yeah.
Kimani, the one you said Kimani, but I'm come on.
Yeah. And this is not your first time here. I mean, you've been here many times.
Yes,
we have had many conversations over the years. But just while we get the others on the phone, get them back because they were there. So on the phone lines, we should have Ras Negos, Ras Ivy, First Man, and Dr. Marcus Goff, and we'll get them back. But just a quick reminder that on the Africa Forum on April 6 this year, we featured the RMO and its submission on constitutional reform, calling for special recognition of Rastafari within the Constitution and a comprehensive Rastafari Act to ensure reparatory justice for the multiple forms of violations of Rastafari rights, including treatment of Rastafari in relation to ganja. We've been talking this morning about the recent CARICOM conference that has wrapped up in Montego Bay. The heads of government meeting advanced Caribbean leaders' support for a petition to Charles, the King of England. And they are petitioning, and we've mentioned that here also, for Britain for reparations for slavery. But the sentiment of the Rastafari community is that this claim for reparations is hypocritical. And Rastafari has the best platform and the best voice to say that this is hypocritical. We support that 100% because while this is happening, while the government continues to reach out to Britain for reparations right here on the island, the government of Jamaica and successive governments continue to blind their eyes to the call for reparations for the decades of state-led aggression and rights violations against the Rastafari community in Jamaica. Since the 1960s, ganja has been used as a tool of draconian oppression of the Rastafari community, with many being victims of the law that in the early days gave mandatory sentence of 18 months for a trace of ganja. And while we have seen that things have improved since the amendment of the Dangerous Drug Act of 2015, the Rastafari community is still regularly under siege by the police force. And in the Africa Forum this morning, in this space, we have a team from Raga who are also members of the RMO to share the significance of the recent case of a member of the Rastafari community who was arrested, detained, and 76 pounds of ganja seized at his premises in Negril on May 27, 2025, and then returned to him when the court agreed that this was against the sacramental rights given to Rastafari in the 2015 amendment. Not sure if we have First Man back online, but wanted a quick recap from him on a little bit more about the RMO and its relationship with Raga. But in studio, we have Rastafari Siba and King Kamau. And so let me just have this conversation with you. And just to say quickly, Rastafari, Siba is really doing a great work in terms of not just foregrounding the issues, but also showing Jamaica what can be done when Jamaica and the government, the law, recognize that Rastafari is part and parcel, and the leaders, literally, of what can be done with the ganja economy. You are foregrounding that right now.
Yes, I give thanks. Well, the ganja has been a major part of our economy even way before colonization began. So once freed up, I'm sure the country on a whole will be in a much better position, to align itself with economical wise.
Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about that before you leave here, about some of what you are doing from the House of Siba. Thank you for showing me, for sending me some of what you've got. And wow, you're talking about thinking locally, but acting globally. and this is brilliant. King Kamau, when you were here last time, you weren't in. You actually mentioned the brethren to us, right? Was it you,
yes.
King Sim? Sorry, King Kamau, I'll come back to you. But you actually mentioned this case. Was this the case you mentioned about the brethren who was...
No, it's a different case.
It's
the first
case
I mentioned was Ras Negos when I was here.
Right.
Yes.
So that was Ras Negos?
Yes.
All right. Well, let me go to the phone lines and see if we have with us First Man and the team. First Man, you're there?
Yes. Blessed love and greetings.
All right. Welcome to the space. Aquaba.
Yes, sir.
And just wanted a quick recap from you, First Man, on what is the RMO and to say what the RMO's relationship is with Raga.
Right. Raga has always been an all-mansion process. When the amendment came about, Rastafari was an add-on to this amendment. And the way how that add-on was meant to be, it was that the Ministry of Justice would have had constant dialogue with the Rastafari community. And at the time, the way how Mark Golden did it, he created what was then called an advisory council, which, with the best effort, was trying to include the main mansions of Rastafari and other organizations within Rastafari.
First Man, I'm so sorry. I have to interrupt. I'm so sorry because I do have to take a quick break. Hold for me, please.
No problem.
Of RMO, Raga, and the Rastafari Indigenous Village in Mobe. Just giving us a backdrop to RMO and its relationship with Raga. Go ahead, First Man.
Yeah, so as I was saying, Mark Golden, Rastafari was an add-on to the amendment. The amendment was based on trying to get as much money as possible out of what they thought was the blooming ganja industry, as it was, being advertised in the U.S. And it did not include legacy. So adding on Rastafari to it and creating some kind of a relationship with the Ministry of Justice, that the Rastafari mansions and organization could inform the Ministry of Justice in how to operate and how to deal with the Rastafari community. So that has gone through many, many phases. During that period of time, the RMO never existed, and the Rastafari community was informally gathering as a community without a structure like how we have one now called the RMO. At that time, we called ourselves mansions and organizations of Rastafari. What was interesting about the law, and at that time in the discussion with Mark Golden, was the relationship that Rastafari had with non-Rastafari who were growing sacraments on our behalf. The deep discrimination that existed with our Rastafari community forced us to have alliance with non-Rastafari people. And hence, we were saying to them that the law also has to protect these people. That was reflected in how the amendment dealt with the exempt event component of it, where if you remember in 2015 at that exempt event, all persons were invited globally and internationally, and Rastafari had that right at the time, as expressed in the event, to protect our ecosystem. So in recognizing that, we then recognized that within an all-mansion process, it was difficult to have non-Rastafari or people who were not a part of an organization to make decisions on the behalf of Rastafari. So the organizations and mansions created this tool, which is Raga. And while Raga existed to facilitate those processes of Rastafari and non-Rastafari, in a reparatory way, we were caught up most of the time in the last 8 years just defending the exploitation and the discrimination, because obviously, ganja was an income source for the police force, and they just would never ever stop attacking our community. So we caught up mainly in going to court, representing, and at that period of time, gathering what the ecosystem is. In the last 3 years... So that
Raga, remind us of what Raga is.
Rastafari, Ganja and Grassroots Association.
And so that the founding members of Raga are on the call with you now at this minute. How many are the founding members? And also we are the founding members of RMO, because it has always been an all-mansion and organization process. So in the last 3 years, RMO has come about as more an established space, and with that establishment, the tool Raga still belongs to its original idea was about the mansions and organizations, and it still is that today. So it has now become this forceful ecosystem that represents the rights of Rastafari, that is looking now that we have gathered the ecosystem, now that we know where our people are, we have submitted
100 and odd names. Some of them that we have received letters from the Ministry of Justice. Now that we first it started with application, but we have moved it to declaration. Application under Minister Golden. Now declaration under Minister Chuck. And this doesn't mean that we are representing the entire Rastafari community. It means that those who have gathered together have taken this approach to the Ministry of Justice. I hope that helps.
Brilliant. Oh, it does. Brilliant. And King Kamau, because I'm a brethren, I've been knowing him as Kamau all along, that's why I get tongue twisted now, King Kamau, my brethren. Just recap for us the provisions related to ganja for Rastafari within the Dangerous Drug Act and the ecosystem built by Raga over the past decade. 3 provisions, eh?
Yes, give thanks and greetings to all on the call, All right, so the provision, as a follow-up on what the first man just said, is that we developed this ecosystem, and through the ecosystem, we declared who we are as Rastafari and our rights to ganja and its sovereignty. So with that, we actually established a relationship and put a process in place with the Ministry of Justice where there are certain forms that you would fill out along a line of declaring who you are. So there's the first one would be like an application for an order designating land for ganja cultivation. There is Rastafari and other grassroots ones are out there. If you are growing ganja on behalf of the community, you can fill out an application form by the Ministry of Justice to say that yes, you are, and it goes through, the acreages and so on and other important information. Then we also have another form that we put as a declaration form, which is designating a place of worship, which is actually a separate space from a ganja cultivation space. A space of worship will be like a mansion that, we once go there, gather the whole Isis Rastafari, and it's almost like a common meeting ground for I family. So that would be a place of worship. And then the final document that we have that's provided on the Ministry of Justice is what we call a ganja exempt order. So if you want to have a ganja event open to the public where ones can come and learn more about ganja, the plant, its benefits, they can come, and so this form has to be done up through the Ministry of Justice. You'll get a ganja exempt order, which is actually published through a gazette, and of course the information sent to the relevant authorities, including the police.
But come on, you've been on this for a very, very long time. I remember the very early days.
Give thanks.
You identified what the problems would be, and you've been like laser focused on this.
Yes,
so how satisfied are you with where we are now?
Well, it's a journey, and we have actually made a lot of strides and some really successful happenings, especially with the last 5 years. But we still have an issue where, even though the spaces are declared right across Jamaica and all 14 parishes, even though the authorities that know that we have these Rastafari spaces, we still have a situation where Rastafari ones are constantly being violated or come under some kind of subjection from the police forces. They run into the spaces, they touch our artifacts, they push over stuff and arrest the brethren. And even sometimes brethren are in a place, not necessarily a space of worship, but going about their lawful business and thing on Rastafari in vehicle. The police harass them, lock them up, and we have to go through this long court system. We have been to court several times. I myself have been, as a justice of the peace, representing Rastafari twice since this year to represent brethren who are held with sacrament in Westmoreland, and of course, both of them were actually Westmoreland, including the last case that we were sent to the one. So
and I remember that this was in the early stage, that this was your fear. You were concerned that this would be happening along the way because of how Rastafari was being left out of the conversation. Now the RMO really desires to have the definition of Rastafari relationship with the sacrament removed from the Dangerous Drug Act. Talk to us about that.
Yes, give thanks for that. And that's a process that we definitely want to see, because over the years, even just the Colonial Dangerous Drug Act, where we put our sacrament along with other dangerous drugs, is really offensive to I, And so we choose to have it removed, but also following the path of what we've seen happening in other jurisdictions. Like there are other countries within CARICOM that have Rastafari, and they have a Rastafari Act that is recognized by the government and the people, which certainly lay out guidelines and protocols of how Rastafari live and operate. So that's what we need for Jamaica here. Being Jamaica is where Rastafari actually start. in terms of, the whole struggle and everything. So a lot of the countries of the world are looking on to what's happening in Jamaica. So we feel that really and truly we're still not where we are, because like I said, once one bridge is violated, it's all bridges that are violated.
Of course. Is there a gap in your understanding then from the RMO's perspective in terms of Rastafari not under authorization based on the declaration?
Well, like as First Man explained, there's Raga and there's RMO. So both combine and come together and trying to, like I said, represent at the full level. We recently just wrote to the Commissioner of Police to have dialogue with him, because, like I said, a lot of the officers when we meet out there are saying that they know they are supposed a license, raise a Rastafari license. And they fail to understand that it's actually a sacramental arrangement, and we are authorized by the Ministry of Justice. We don't necessarily have a license per se, but we are authorized to have these spaces and to have our ganjas, our rights. So the RMO and Raga combine together to, like I said, tackle the forces that be, have representation with the government at different ministries, not just the Ministry of Justice, but also the Ministry of Culture, the Ministry of National Security, and of course the Police High Command. I'm so saddened that we're having this conversation, especially with you, Kamau, because this conversation we had, with the years we were having it, what years were those? I think that was from about 2017, 2018, certainly before COVID came through. This very long before COVID. This very same conversation. Yeah, so, it's a struggle. It continues. Well, let us hope that with RMO and the unity that we're seeing now, RMO, Raga, and other Rastafari, that we see a faster pace, if you will, a pickup. Do we have Ras Ivy on the line? Ras Ivy, are you there? Ras Ivy, CLA Board Director on behalf of the Rastafari community. I know he's traveling, he's overseas, so we don't seem to have him online. Is Ras Negus online?
Yes.
All right. Greetings, Ras Negus. How are you doing, my brother?
Giving thanks to life and a blessed man uprising,
Right. You experience a violation of your rights. We talked about you earlier for possession of ganja. Tell us about that.
There was a situation where the police came into I space about 2022, December, and that was like 8 years within the amendment, and, them bring me and sign up a paper and charge, and I went to court, and got to court about a year and had got through the court system, and, finally the judge come up with a guilty charge of possession, which possession was already something that do not apply to Rastafari according to the law. So we find it a gross injustice concerning the Rastafari part, and bias and prejudice against I and I, and concerning the right of Rastafari, it's clearly in the law that rule against possession of ganja do not apply to Rastafari, and we have all these rights, and then and our rights being taken away by a system where designed to oppress I and I over the years, So we see it as injustice on I and I part, and I see where I and I as Rastafari have to continue to stand up for I and I right. But now, you see, after my case, I realize that all the rest of cases have got through the court system, thrown out, and ganja has been given back and all of these things. So I think we're reaching somewhere. Yes. But there is violation where we need to actually deal with, concerning with I personal, based upon our rights. So the judge was saying to I and I that she know that I and I is a Rasta man, and she cannot send I to prison, but she have to go ahead and charge I for possession. When possession was one of the things we first make clear, the rule against possession of ganja do not apply to Rastafari. So I think she go out her way, based upon this long time stigma against Rasta, and, Yes. So do you think that there needs to be more sensitization, both to the police and also the Rastafari community, about the sacramental rights of Rastafari? Yes. I think so, because when the amendment came out in 2015, which is 10 years, ago,
Yes.
You know, I don't think them did actually go in at the station and put this thing up in the station and make the police know that Rasta man not supposed to be locked up for ganja, and Rasta man have the right to cultivate ganja. Rasta man have the right to keep an exempt event. You know, all of these things, I don't think them did highlight it. So.
So that what we have here, RMO, Raga, the unity that we see forming around Rastafari rights, sacramental rights, and other human rights, and Rastafari rights generally, that this is critical for this kind of unity and centralization that we see emerging through the RMO.
Yes, that is very much critical, because that is the means of, you know, the whole essence of the Rastafari was unity.
Yeah.
You know, coming together as a people, you know, we always chant. That is our liberty, basically. You know, we see this togetherness. So, I mean, RMO and Raga together now, it is just fulfilling all of what the ancient used to talk about, organize and centralize and coming together, even though we don't have everyone on board in terms of the wider Rastafari community, because, you know, even that is the thing about law right now.
Hold a sec, don't hang up. Hold a sec. Affairs. On the phone lines, we have Rasnigos, and we're talking about the sacramental rights, just generally about Rastafari, but Rastafari legitimate claim for sacramental rights. Rasnigos, as you heard earlier, experienced violation of his rights for possession of ganja, and you heard just through the discussion the significance of the cases of ganja being returned to the Rastafari, demonstrating a point in history for Rastafari finally to be free from harassment for cultivating and using sacrament. So you were saying, Rasnigos, that the centralization that we see happening, Raga, RMO and others, that this is good, but that there needs to be more Rastafari coming into these spaces and being members of the or under the RMO umbrella.
Yes, we need more of the family to come together in that way, and the Rastaman who are out there, because, you know, according to this law, Sister Cabo, this law, 2015 amendment, every Rasta person, you know, Rasta woman or Rasta man over the age of 18, they have the right to apply their cultivation space at the Ministry of Justice and plant ganja. These are things I put in the law 10 years ago, but now we find, say, even for a Rasta man in a place of plant, him still go through these struggles. We think, say, anybody else did have them right. You know, if it's Mr. Chin did have them right, say. You know, I don't think the police them would have deal with him in a that manner like how them deal with and I after our right established. So I'm on just one that freedom.
Yes. Well
freedom.
said.
We really want the herbs to be legalized. Basically, so everyone have that right to the herbs.
Well said, my brother. Well said.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Do we have brother Marcus Goff online? Marcus, are you there? I know we got Marcus earlier. He's also traveling, I think. All right, but in the studio we have Ras Jabali Siva and King Kamau. Who else? Somebody just said, who is that? No? All right. Brother Siva, Ras Jabali Siva, just listening to the conversations we're having is very interesting, because so much has been said about leading into the decriminalization, if you will, of ganja, about Rastafari legitimate claim for sacramental rights, but also other rights should be involved in this. Why is this just sacramental rights?
Well, it's because we're in tune with Raga, where we're really discussing sacramental rights, but the RMO is really focused on Rastafari rights in general.
Yes.
So today we are speaking on the sacramental rights, but even recently the RMO has championed the cause of vaccination in schools by Rastafari children. Well, again,
rid of dreadlocks.
We're enough dreadlocks in schools and workplace. Even now I have a virgin from Chilon who have contacted me, a security guard virgin, that he's been forced to cut his locks. We're working on an exemption for him to present to him this money. So RMO is championing the cause of all Rastafari rights. not just sacramental rights, but because the ganja thing is big, it's a little loud. But it's all Rastafaris that we are focused on.
Okay. In terms of how that is going, because one would have thought that even when you think of vaccination for Rastafari children in schools and the right to wear dreadlocks in school, that this is no longer a fight, that this is something that is a given. Where are we with that? Is this still a fight for Rastafari?
Well, it's not really a fight anymore because the schools are accepting the vaccination exemption.
Oh, they're accepting the exemption
yes, they're
now?
accepting the vaccination exemption now, and the workplaces are accepting the exemption for wearing dreadlocks.
Right. What about the schools for dreadlocks?
Yeah, the schools are now accepting the vaccination. We sent a vaccination to exemption to Kingston about 3 weeks ago for a year. We're in schools, and the school accepted the exemption.
Okay.
So we're really making strides and we're getting somewhere.
So for Rastafari listening, and there's so many Rastafari families who have not yet come on to under this umbrella.
Yes.
But for those who are listening, this is one route to go through. I can tell you, I get a lot of calls from Rastafari to say, how can you assist? My child is being refused to be accepted in school because they insist that the child takes a vaccine, or they insist that the child can't go to school with locks. But you're saying there is a process, there is a path through the RMO that can assist.
Yes, we've created an exemption for vaccination and the wearing of locks, and also growing your sacrament and distributing your sacrament within the community. And that has been accepted by the government and the system. So that's a route. You can contact any member of the RMO for assistance in getting through this process.
While I have you, and I'm going to go back to First Man and also to King Come. I'm not sure who else is online, and this is it. So I know we have King, we have First Man online, we know we have Ras Negros. Who else is online that I'm leaving out? Anyone else? Just true. All right. I talked earlier about what the House of Seba is doing in terms of moving this whole conversation beyond just the idea of how you use ganja within your sacramental spaces, but beyond that into a global thinking. Talk to me about what House of Seba is doing.
Well, the ganja, when one think of the ganja and Rastafari, they really think of smoking ganja and just smoking ganja. A lot of ones don't know the uses of ganja. Ganja has a physical and a spiritual side to it. The physical part, it has medicinal values. The ganja is, our body is our endocannabinoid system with cannabinoid receptors responsible for pain sensation, mood, appetite. And the ganja plant produces the exact cannabinoid for these cannabinoid receptors. So the people on a whole, their body is calling for ganja. Rastafari also use ganja for holistic healing. So the ganja takes it to a meditative state, whether you like it or not. So we have what we use, intentional ganja use. So you use it, let's say you have a pain in the knee. You use the ganja oil to massage the knee, and then you use a chalice, a steam chalice, to go into meditative state where you can reflect on yourself without a pain in the knee. So about 4 or 5 of those sessions and the pain in the knee is gone. So that's something in Rastafari we call holistic healing. So there's a lot of use for ganja other than smoking ganja that I and I need to focus on. And I think that's where our main focus is. So we have pain rubs, we have the oils, we have tinctures, and we have all other sorts of ways where we promote the use of ganja.
And the packaging is beyond anything that we've seen in Jamaica.
Big up Ross Woolday, the design of those logo labels, you know?
Yeah, it's really brilliant. First Man, you're there? I seem to have lost you. Okay, all right, great. First Man, I know we should have Ivy on, but I think you can speak to some of the issues that Ivy would be looking at this morning. I think we're getting back, and also we're not able to get Marcus Goff back also, and they're both traveling. But that one of the issues is how far we've come. The mindset of the police who have been trained to villainize Rastafari. What are you noticing that is different? I know I have many friends within the force who will go school together and we lime together and so on. And I know one of the things in terms of training, target practicing, A friend told me, in the last few years, that target that it's an image of a dreadlock person. That is used. So this is part of their training. I don't know if that is still happening, but I think that is something we spoke about many years ago when I was told this. I think it was 5 or 7 years ago that we discussed that. But how far? Talk to us about the trajectory and how far have we come in terms of your own personal experience.
Yeah, thank you for that question. In 2012, I myself was called to a training of the 2003 Intangible Cultural Heritage Convention, which really spoke to the fact that the Ministry of Culture is supposed to be the focal institution that deals with the Rastafari and other indigenous communities and cultural groups within the country, that they should act as a kind of a liaison. And at that particular time, it was asked from the people who were gathered there, Maroons and otherwise, what is it that we are looking for? And we had requested some kind of a structural meeting that can go across ministries, with the Ministry of Culture being that full representation of how we would move into those spaces, get meetings, and create a structure. The fact of the matter is no structure has been created. We have continued to be treated as a need arise, and that need arise comes from out of us being completely frustrated, no proactive move, and you find the same thing happening. The guidelines of the CLA are required for 2 Rastafari people to be there, right? And they continue to either select on their own behalf who they would want to put there, and during that process of time, you find that decisions or conversations can be made on our behalf because of the lack of structure. So what we have been seeing is, the Ministry of Justice, Chuck, has written some kind of a thing to the police force, the Commissioner of Police, to say to them that, listen, a force order must be put in place or recognize the rights of Rastafari. But then we are so we're not even in the kitchen. I would never say we are on the back burner. We're not even in the kitchen. So as a result of that, those rights have never, ever been recognized, and there's just no respect. So if you remember the time we started a campaign about respect Rastafari,
yes,
that we are convinced that only when that respect is given, only when we are recognized, and I think that they are afraid to recognize us, because the impact that Rastafari has had on this country, be it tourism, culture, or otherwise, it's a big reparatory process.
Yes.
For us to be recognized in that way. Yes. It's almost the same way why people would not want to recognize Africa. Because if you do recognize the role it plays, you then are, you're entitled to honor that recognition.
You know what I'm thinking. Well, Ras is on the line and also in the studio, and just building upon what Ras, our first man, just said. Come on, it's interesting because earlier we talked about the hypocrisy of the government of Jamaica going all the way to England to present a question or questions to Charles, King of England, regarding reparations. But at the same time, there is a situation on the island. This is Jamaica's shame, if you will, their shame, in that for so many years, Rastafari has been calling out, requesting in many different ways that the rights of Rastafari be recognized. And even we just listened to First Man just now. I mean, this is ridiculous. So should Rastafari probably be thinking of doing through the RMO and RAGA a similar thing that the Reparations Council here in Jamaica has done, which is to ask the Reparations Council the very same questions they just asking Charles. Because they brought questions to Charles, Rastafari should pose those questions to the government of Jamaica.
Well, yes, I agree, but I even go beyond that to say that even before we look outside of it, Rastafari, we have already self-declared ourselves, they know for our liberty. So why has it taken so long for ones to accept where we are in terms of our liberty?
No, I don't mean to take those questions to Charles, I mean to take those questions to the government of Jamaica.
And that's where I'm heading. I'm saying that we already have developed dialogue with them, but yet there seems to be like a closed door situation in terms of our full freedom and where we are in terms of our rights and sovereignty. So in 2025, after the act was amended in 2015, 10 years later, we're still having to be asserting ourselves to say that we have this right with this plant. This is not going to go anywhere in terms of, it's a part of our liberty. When you see Rastafari, you see ganja, and so we're not going to give up on it. So I'm saying, why don't you allow us to express ourselves, but also to combine with the people to show that the ganja and the Rastafari life is together. You know?
I hear you being very diplomatic, come out, but let me take a break. I'm soon come back.
When I need to order concrete for my big or small jobs, I order only solid concrete. Yes, solid concrete mix for my money. The time by Solid Concrete Mix is
17 after 8 o'clock. Association Raga, and they also currently serve as Sacramental Committee of the Rastafari Mansions and Organizations, RMO. We have members from the RMO also in studio with us. So we have King Kamau and we have our brother Jabali Siva in the house with us. On the line, we have Ras Negus and First Man. We're inside the last 5 minutes of the program, so I'm just going to do a go around and have you give your final statements. I'm sorry we weren't able to get back online, Ras IV and also Marcus Goff, but I will continue the conversation and see if we can get them in next week or sometime after that. But let me start with you, your final words from you, Kamau, since you're in the middle of that. Let me just take your final words and hope that you're not so diplomatic this time. Sorry, my bad.
Well, from the spaces I represent, Starscape Rastafari Sanctuary, and on behalf of Raga and the RMO, I ask three things in terms of our interaction with the government. One, to quickly look at issuing the second gazette that was supposed to come out for the list of spaces that were declared after the first one. The first gazette was issued August 3rd, 2023, that declares the Rastafari space that were sent through. Since that time, we have had more than even double the amount of spaces that went through on the first gazette that are in waiting. And while they're in waiting and waiting the process and central gazette as a ministerial order, we have the police high command and the forces running to these spaces, and we have to be, declaring ourselves all over. The second thing I would like for the government to look at is facilitate this thing of having Rastafari move from the Dangerous Act and establishing what we would call a Rastafari Act, which is actually happening in other jurisdictions. St. Vincent and Nevis, there are one such case that came up where they have actually declared a separate act for just Rastafari affairs in itself. And of course, my last request to bring it home locally is if we could certainly have dialogue with the police commissioner. This last police commissioner was currently there. The current one, Dr. Kevin Blake, because we have had dialogue with the previous commissioner and he, facilitated a lot of things with us and sort of close the gap. This new commissioner, we are reaching out to try to say we can have dialogue with him. We just dropped off a letter at this office last week because we want to have this whole issue of the interaction between the police and the ganja and the spaces be looked at closely so we can all come together with a strategy to facilitate.
Rasiva?
Yes, I give thanks. And I final word I always have to say, I want the people of Jamaica to pay attention to His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie. 1935, His Majesty was crowned king and emperor of all black people, not just the ones in Africa, but all black people all over the world, and that was a liberation for black people. So that's one of the main things I want, ones and ones in Jamaica, Rastafari, non-Rastafari, to pay attention and do some research on.
Give thanks. Ras Negus? Final words from you, Ras Negus? No, not there? All right, let me take the final word from First Man.
Yes. Thank you for this gathering. I would really just love to say to the Jamaican government that their direct lack of structure in dealing with us is because they want to continue to divide and rule and create internal problems within I&I community, right, which allows ones and ones to continue to agitate, and then ones and ones think that this one should not be doing it and that one should, and it's a deliberate ploy. And they constantly use this argument about us not being together when they are the ones who have designed it in that way by not creating a structure that can allow us to evolve our conversations of our rights, constitutionally and otherwise.
All right. Thank you so much, my brother. Thank you so much, Rasnigos. Thank you so much, First Man. And we'll continue the discussion. Of course, we like to hear what the continued challenges are, but also the how this works out, because this is something that I think cannot be ignored, and I don't see how those even in the Reparations Council, internal reparations is part of one strand, one branch of the Reparations Council in Jamaica, and that of course would focus and foreground, I think, to a large extent, Rastafari issues. Yes. So let's see where this goes from here. Thank you so much, all.
Give thanks.
All right, give thanks. Speaking to my sister, my little sis, Sabira Gordon, for Sinjing, and she said, Sister Mitzi will be there to sign her books. And I said, Sister Mitzi, I don't have her book. So I met Sister Mitzi. I saw her at for Sinjing, and she came and she gave me my autographed copy. So thank you so much, Sister Mitzi. I Can, says Fran, by Mitzi Williams, Tafari, children's book. All right, we're going to go to our next guest online because, as I've been saying, the CARICOM conference the summit has wrapped up in Montego Bay. And one of the speakers there was the Barbados Prime Minister, Mia Mottley, and she cautioned Caribbean nations there, telling that they were facing escalating threats from violence, gun proliferation, and organized crime, transnational organized crime. She called for a unified regional action and spoke about some of the reforms that are currently underway in Barbados and in other parts of the Caribbean region. What caught my attention, though, was the fact that she spent some time talking about transnational organized crime. As you know, that has been a focus of this program for a few months. Well, now we have been having conversations with Dr. Darius Figueroa, who has published many books and journal articles on instances of the utilization of this, methodology, and I think I'm reading the entire wrong thing about him, but his first writing, his book from 2002 to 2014, where he concentrated on the illicit trades of the Caribbean or within the Caribbean region, and also other books that look at transnational organized crime. Just totally reading a whole different thing about Darius Figueroa, my bad, so sorry. But he's a social researcher and an author, and he's been on the program a few times now, just helping us to understand how transnational organized crime is evolving in the region, the Caribbean and Latin America, and the extent to which we all are impacted, especially looking at Jamaica, Belize, Trinidad, and other Caribbean countries. Do we have him online? All right, so I'm going to go to the phone lines to speak with Dr. Darius Figueroa, who will be helping us taking us through Mia Mottley's speech and giving his perspective on what we heard there. Dr. Figueroa, thank you so much for joining me again inside of the Africa Forum.
Thank you very much, my sister. Greetings.
Greetings to you. Greetings to you. Just remind our listeners, because I've been talking about you a lot and you've been on many times, but we haven't really looked closely at who you are and the work that you've done regarding issues relating to transnational organized crime. Remind us of that work.
Well, my interest in the entire field of transnational organized crime and criminality, what we term the game, really started in the 1970s. Mm-hmm. And I have done periods of and bouts of field work in Trinidad and Tobago. But I started writing and publishing from 1998 on the Caribbean drug trade. Yes. So that is when I started to put out written works and analyzing what is going on.
Right. And our listeners need to be reminded of the extent, the challenges that you faced and the extent to which external forces have tried to stymie this work and to silence your voice.
Well, my life has not been an easy one because I'm still alive, but what has happened is that I have never been given opportunity.
Yes.
In fact, I was the recipient of a blow in which they destroyed my career at the University of the West Indies at St. Augustine.
Mm-hmm.
And since then, I have found no work in Trinidad and Tobago for me.
Goodness. And this is all because of the research, the work that you're doing. Do you know what the forces are that are aligned against you as a sergeant, for Dr. Kwame Nkrumah would say?
Well, my sister, it is very, very, very strange is that what happens, these forces are not really emanating from transnational organized crime because in their scheme of things, I amount to nothing. Mm-hmm. The forces are emanating from the drug trafficking oligarchs who continue to play decent and respectable people. And they simply do not want persons to expose where their wealth is derived and the power they wield in the Caribbean.
Yes. And this is critical to your research. And also, we've had conversation about this. You've kind of shed light on this for us in a serious way that has opened our eyes even more, because we were eyes wide shut, literally, on this, that the extent to which the oligarchs of drug trafficking are apparently, in terms of appearances to the mind, law-abiding citizens of great stature in the Caribbean.
Yes, what has happened is that from the decade of the 1990s, there was this meteoric rise up the social order to the very apex of the social order, premised upon the ridiculous profits and wealth they were amassing from the illicit trades to the North Atlantic. So they literally bought their way into the oligarchy. So what happened is that they literally displaced the traditional oligarchy of the Caribbean who did not enter the trade.
Mm-hmm. And who did not enter the trade?
Well, there were traditional oligarchic families who did not enter. There were traditional oligarchic families who did. But what is common throughout the Caribbean is that the dominant drug trafficking oligarch families are all of minority races. You don't find African families amongst them. Not even in Haiti.
And this has to set in. This has to sink in.
And that is why they came at me in Trinidad and Tobago, because remember, I am of mixed race.
Mm-hmm.
So I was a sort of traitor.
Mm-hmm. So they expected you to... Did they try to open a door for you in this illicit trade to be part of this oligarchy, this drug trafficking oligarchy?
Well, they know nothing about me, because if they know anything about me, they should know that I started learning about the game at 7 years old.
Mm-hmm. And what is that game?
So before, the game, the illicit game.
Yes.
Yes. So before they were even in the game, at 7 years old, I was learning about it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the fact of the matter is that I knew the game, understood it, grew up learning the game. But I chose not to enter it.
Mm-hmm.
So I therefore became a dangerous individual who knows and does not want to take part.
And so you became a traitor.
So essentially, I'm a double traitor. I'm an informer and a race traitor.
Yes, and you're a whistleblower. You're making all of this known, so I can understand the extent to which you have been pressured and locked out of the spaces. We are very well aware of that, of how they try to sabotage your PhD, for example, at the University of the West Indies, and the extent to which they try to stifle your voice. But thank you for speaking up just the same and for making yourself available to people like myself in the Caribbean. I know you are on radio in Belize. I'm not quite sure what's happening in Trinidad, but thank you so much for making the time.
Well, it's part of the process.
Yeah. All right.
It's the Black Power Revolution ongoing to 2025.
There you go. Fourth Industrial Revolution.
Linked. But he did not provide the nexus, which is Caribbean organized crime is all linked to transnational organized crime. It is transnational organized crime that calls the shots.
Dr. Figueroa, let me take a quick break and we come back to look at the other entity, because you talk about these two entities of transnational organized crime that are irreconcilable within the Caribbean and playing out in ways that people like yourself are very, very clear about on the island. Let me take up specifically in the Caribbean, Dr. Darius Figueroa. Dr. Figueroa, so we have the Colombian cartel. You're very clear on how they've been operating in Jamaica, and you're saying, but there is another force that is at conflict, and so we see it playing out on the island. What's that other force, and how is it presenting?
Well, what has happened with when the Colombians started when they changed the business model and they started to wholesale their kilo bricks, there was a group of Mexican investors who were present with the creation of the cocaine trade in Colombia. It's they who created it, who refused to accept that model, and they walked away, and they set up their own organization. That is the organization I call Pax Mexicana. So in the early 21st century, Pax Mexicana moved into Jamaica, but my brothers and sisters in Jamaica must understand the strategy of Pax Mexicana.
Mm-hmm.
Pax Mexicana moved into Jamaica primarily to challenge the hegemony of the Colombian Dons over Jamaica because of the linkages to the eastern seaboard of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So we must understand that Pax Mexicana now dominates the illicit trades of the United States of America and Europe, locking out the Colombian Dons. So what did Pax Mexicana do in Jamaica? They targeted the parish of St. James, especially, at which the heartbeat of the parish of St. James is Montego Bay. They targeted Westmoreland. So what has happened, that is when the violence broke out in Montego Bay. Graphic violence never seen before. And that ongoing war is what sparked this uptick in violence in Jamaica.
And they tell us, and in terms of the politicians, the security ministry and the commission or the commissioner of police's office over time, all of them, when we saw this vicious violence break out in Westmoreland and in Montego Bay, in St. James in particular, they told us it's gang warfare without connecting it to anything.
Yes. So let me present that question to my brothers and sisters in Jamaica. Where is Stone Crusher today? I remember the days when Stone Crusher ran Norwood and Stone Crusher was a force. Where is Stone Crusher today?
Where is Stone Crusher?
Stone Crusher has literally disappeared.
Why?
Where is One Order? So what has happened is that Pax Mexicana moves in, they recruit your best and most creative sets who join them. The war begins, And when you are going to war with Pax Mexicana, they literally cleanse the enemy. So the type of violence we saw in Montego Bay, that was the cleansing, and the cleansing spread. So what has happened today, my sister? Right now, as I speak to you since 2024, now in 2025, Pax Mexicana controls the north coast of Jamaica, its east coast and its west coast. That is the turf of Pax Mexicana. They run there now. And recognize that the north coast of Jamaica is the exclusive tourist zone.
Well, we are seeing a serious uptick in crime and violence in St. Anne, St. Mary, Portland.
Mm-hmm. The cleansing. So what you must understand, the reason why you target the north, the west, and the east coast, that's the pipelines. That's the pipelines. In, and they are dual flow pipelines, in and out.
So when you say that's a cleansing, what do you mean?
When you go to war against Pax Mexicana, they bring out the professional hitmen. And you always know the professional hitmen. So they will come at their targets. One will come with an AR-15. One will come with an AK-47. One will come with a shotgun. One will come with a handgun. That's the trademark. So they take you out with extreme prejudice to send a message.
So this is a nexus that is not being discussed on the island. I can tell you the only place where this is being discussed is on this program. I wouldn't even say on this station. I'm saying on this program. Since we've been having the conversations with you, there has been no connection made. I am thinking that now that Mia Motley has raised this issue, that, would see more conversations about this, journalists asking questions. You talk about the press conference where the Prime Minister was. There's an election that's going on the island. But this doesn't come up at all. We are talking about election campaign funding, and you talk about the oligarchs who are drug traffickers. And so that points us to, I am not saying PSOJ, but that points us to private sector, if you will. Mm-hmm. So election campaign funding is a big thing now on the island, and money are dashed left, right, and center. Question is, this has been happening over the years. So Mayor Motley, I think, is strategic in how she raised this. She raised this in Jamaica as CARICOM, the leadership of CARICOM, has been handed over to Jamaica in the middle of an election cycle. Journalists have not picked up on this apart from to report what she said. So it's reported speech, no analysis. What do you think is the role of journalism, of the people of Jamaica, bearing in mind all that you are seeing as a researcher who's been looking at this for how many decades now, and also what Mia Motley, as a Prime Minister of Barbados, raised in the space just a few days ago?
No, I have been reading the Jamaican newspapers online for years.
Yes.
And I have seen the actual decline in the quality of the journalist work that is being put out now compared to the good old days when I read Jamaican work, journalistic work online.
Yes.
Because what has happened is that the validating elites of the Caribbean have all kowtowed. They have surrendered.
Yes, that is true.
Because from the time you have now become corporate media, you are not rocking the boat.
Not at all.
So what has happened now is that it's as simply as you said, my sister, reported speech.
Yeah.
So when you read now and use online newspaper report on a crime scene. They don't even tell you what weapon was actually used. They give you no forensic details, none at all. At least in Trinidad and Tobago, which is still common in the media, they tell you what was the caliber of the shells found on the scene, etc., to give you an idea of what was used.
Yeah.
There is nothing in Jamaica, coming out of Jamaica, nothing.
That is true, and this is my profession, and I can tell you I'm ashamed of it. So you're right. In going back to Mia Motley, and because she did raise some points about, she talked about the urgency of this. She said it's immediate. She said the solutions are needed right now. She said it's an existential crisis, a gale force wind. We have to deal with it immediately. But she also talked a bit about what should be done in terms broadly. What do you think of the solutions, if you will, that she raised?
Well, I listened to her. I read her solutions. I would like to get specific for you.
Yes.
In the body of acts we have, all our legislation, it is so backward and behind the time that it is totally unfit for purpose, because throughout the Caribbean, we have no equivalent to the Racketeering Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act of the United States of America. Mm-hmm. If you want to deal with transnational organized crime, if you want to deal with organized crime, you must have an act on your books that is influenced by RICO.
Mm-hmm. And what is RICO?
That is the Racketeering Influence and Corrupt Organization Act. That is the act passed in the 1970s in America that enabled them to dismantle the mafia in America. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We have no equivalent of that in the Caribbean. Nowhere.
Could it be that, well, we talk about the oligarchs and those who, if I'm right in thinking, that these people are placed in the places they are placed, we're not likely to see anything like that.
No. So what we have nothing that approaches the reach that this gives to law enforcement and the prosecutor to build a case against you to dismantle your organization, because it attacks the wealth that you generate from your illicit activities. So that even though Mia Motley raised these broad solutions, she talked about legislative issues, but that is also a process, which is also the point you raised in terms of RICO. But she, at the same time, and it seems like a conundrum, because she's saying this is urgent, this is an existential crisis, there's an urgency of now, but the solutions seem more long-term. So how do you address the matter within the long term? And we're not talking just one country, as she wasn't talking one country. This is a problem that affects the entire Caribbean, the region. It has to be at minimum a CARICOM-wide venture where we come up with a common legislative agenda and we apply. So the fact of the matter is, next question is, do you face jail time in the Caribbean for tax evasion?
Well, not when tax evasion is happening at the very highest levels. I mean, all the ministers... Well, anyway, let me not do it. I mean, tax evasion in Jamaica is happening. Everybody has an account in St. Lucia. And these are let me hold my tongue, because no, the answer is no.
Because every single loophole that you exploit, transnational organized crime exploits it better than you. So so therefore that's a gigantic loophole. Have we weaponized immigration and customs in the Caribbean? by turning immigration and customs into an enforcement agency to track down and prosecute with jail time and seizure of assets people who smuggle, whether it be illicit drugs, humans, whatever, arms, whatever. No.
No, the
We
answer is
continue
no.
to have, yes, we continue to abide by this old colonial legislation that turns customs into a revenue collection agency and turns immigration into an agency that issues passports, and that is it.
So does CARICOM have, this is my final question, only because we're out of time, but does CARICOM have the will to address this issue even within the context that you just raised? Do you see CARICOM as having the will?
To be honest with you, my sister, as usual, I see no political will in the Caribbean to turn and face this product, this threat, and grapple with it in a manner to ensure our public safety. I see no political will.
Goodness.
But what I would like to tell you and your listeners and my brothers and sisters in Jamaica, I have revised my 2004 book, Cocaine and Heroin Trafficking in the Caribbean, in the case of Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica, and Guyana.
Yes.
And it is now in pre-production for publication.
All right.
I have presented an analysis of the illicit trades in Jamaica from the 1970s to now, from Vivian Blake to now, explaining all of these things in writing and much more what I speak about on your program.
All right, so we'll keep our eyes out for that. You'll tell us when it's out. We'll be ready for that. We'll read it in our book club, and we'll have you come on and we go through it line upon line, precept upon precept, as my father would say. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Figueroa.
Thank you, my
once
sister.
Again.
Thank you.
Wow.
Bye.
You're always so open and honest in this space and so insightful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
All right. Wow. This is where we are. Me that the election should have been August 27, 2007, but the hurricane caused it to be pushed back to September 3, 2007. This is why I said I was saying earlier I couldn't find an election in August, but that if you did no one tell me and him say right, it was scheduled for August 27, 2007, but pushed back to September 3. Then we have many comments from people saying that it is clear that the Prime Minister is not convinced that I'm going to win, so I'm drawing out the elections. I don't think that is it. I think the elections are going to be pretty close. And, the election campaigning is in full swing. The polls, as usual, not making any sense, because polls are what they are, snapshot in time, and they can answer questions anyway if we make you say what you want to say, and next thing you know. Anyway, so I do not put much credence on polls, and that me study too. so because I've done that, I've become a study that me know. Of course me know. Anyway, so I saw the red, the orange and the green clot them all over the place, and it's everywhere. I don't know if you're seeing it in your parish, but I think they've gone overboard now, and nobody will tell them to stop. This is foolishness. Stop it. Get over on yourself with the whole part. It's a Pavlov dog situation. People are salivating when they see certain colors nowadays. So take them down. I said, and I'm standing by what I said. I said what I said, and I'm standing by it, which is that we really should get them orange and green clot here, tie them up, and do what Marcus Garvey say. Any politician that is corrupt, etc., if we cannot tar and feather them, then we need a green clot, and we need all of them clot there. Right. Right, and my microphone is working. So we know my microphone never did work, and I pick up something. But, there you go. Anyway, so we're seeing your messages to me. Thank you so much. Rusty and Sister Audrey, how you doing, my family? We saw you at Four Centing, and we never get to see you for too long, but we get a nice little hug from both of you. So thank you so much for that. Iwa, my brother, Courtney Anderson, Iwa, who is in Tanzania. I know you're listening from Tanzania. You know, Iwa, I saw our brethren at Fuisinting, who was in Ghana with us, and he asked for you, and he said that he thought that he would have seen you at least. Bar, you know, me and Bar did a kneel down pan the same picnic mat that my sister Joan carry. Bar said, but I thought I would have seen Iowa. And me say, I thought I would have seen Iowa. At the time, Iowa, they are Tanzania. So Iowa, big up yourself in Tanzania. We'll talk to you soon. Morning, Sister P, how you do? Busy Campbell, I see you, my brother. K. Azikiwe, he says, AI will make common sense redundant, and that is true. And that's because we're having a conversation this morning that when we say artificial intelligence, we're talking anti-intelligence. So for me, the A in artificial intelligence, we can still say AI, but understand that A means anti, or if you say anti-intelligence is what this artificial intelligence is. All right, so I'm seeing you, Denise Isis Miller, my sister. We saw Isis at Fuasinting too, and in Amber's, that is Mutamba's tent. And may I tell you, Mutamba, we love that close. It's 9:30. I'm in next interview. Thank you so much. I have 2 minutes. I know my brother is holding on, but he's due for 9:30. So let me just go through this. Thank you so much. So Isis, yeah man. So Isis, Mutamba, and so on. Mutamba, we love the fact them, I see. Love the fact them. Sister Karida, how you doing, my sister? Natisia Bahad Singh, how you doing, my friend? And Dr. Devon Taylor. Good morning, Dr. Devon. Good morning, Dr. Devon Taylor. You know when I say it like that, why I say it like that? Because between me and you, we'll get ourselves in a serious trouble. Me and Dr. Devon Taylor will get ourselves in a trouble. But it's going to be good trouble. So good morning to you, Dr. Devon Taylor. And I know that Jabem is heading back to court, and I think it's this week, let me know, Devon, Little Duns River. Jabem is doing really a great job on the island by challenging the colonial era laws relating the Beach Management Act here on the island, and they're doing a pretty good job of this. So I think they're going back to court next week. Aki, my brother, I'm seeing you. Who am I leaving out? All right, so that is not on Facebook or so on. So if you didn't hear your name, it's because I'm not in the Facebook spaces, so I'm sorry. Andrew Lumsden, Donna Mattis, Aldous Hunkar, Denise Isis Miller. Wow, what a beautiful pic, Denise Isis. Yes, so right down, I'm going to go through. I wasn't at Facebook. I didn't realize what was happening on Facebook, but some serious commentary on Facebook, so I have to go over there. Shamari Huggins, he's listening. Where are you, Shamari? Because you're overseas, aren't you? Right, so we're seeing you too. And Kevin Nairiri is seeing you, my brother. Shamari, yeah, you're in Omaha, Nebraska, Shamari. My brother, James Jones, Jawari Garvey. I'm seeing you. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Guest is the Commonwealth Short Story Prize 2023 winner. He is a co-author and Amazon bestseller of Heart of a Black Man, ghostwriter, content creator, editor, proofreader, and book mentor strategist. He's a Heinemann Book Publishers short story competition runner-up for the short story synopsis and a surpass and get him going, and runner-up for ASA 1994 for the poem Black Angel. He's a Poetic Soul winner and runner-up Poetic Soul 2007 for the poem Her African Beauty. And he's won many awards. He's come back recently from the Middle East, where he represented the Caribbean at an international global book fair. And he's going back shortly. No stranger to the Africa Forum. Last time we talked to him, he was in the Middle East. Last time we talked to him on air. Now I think he's back in Jamaica, because we saw him at the St. Mary Literary Festival. My brother and friend, Kwame McPherson. How are you doing, my brother?
I am wonderful. I'm brilliant. I'm superb. I'm completely fantastic.
There you go. And you looked that way the last time I saw you. Yeah.
Hello.
The St. Mary Literary Festival on the seaside. What a beautiful venue.
Yeah, man, it's a wonderful venue.
Yeah.
Great vibe, lots of potential, So, let me get involved and go and support,
Yeah, we love it. We're talking though. You know, I read your latest short story. I think it is your latest, and one of your latest short stories. And boy, you brought me back into the dungeons of Cape Coast Castle. The water carrier of Cape Coast Castle is this story. I felt everything, but also felt the spirit of resistance that our people had in Cape Coast and even during the Ma'afa. But this is a short story. Tell us about this, because this is you reimagining what might have happened at Cape Coast dungeons to a young person kidnapped.
Yeah. It's based on my personal experience, and I said it to anyone. I said it to any African, Caribbean, any Jamaican. Said, before we take up any label, it's a pilgrimage we must make to the West Coast of Africa. Well, anywhere along the West Coast, I've visited one of those castles or forts, whatever you want to call it. Because for me, when I was going through what I was going through in terms of going through my depression experience, I had the opportunity to go to Cape Coast, and that was when it's interesting, Sister Kabwe, that you have all these labels, as an entrepreneur, I had, qualifications and all this kind of stuff. I had all these labels. But when I got in that dungeon,
yes,
I couldn't have any labels anymore. I was literally strip naked. It didn't mean anything. You know what I mean? So for me, that experience was so profound that I eventually write about it a lot more. And that short story was just one of, in my last book, My Date with Depression, that's where I actually went into detail of that experience, but I'm now using it in other things that I'm writing, so that people can actually understand, because we don't understand, we really don't truly understand the what our ancestors went through until you have that kind of experience in my mind. You know what I mean? We really don't, we know about it.
Yes.
It's like anything else, but you see, when you go and you experience it, you've experienced it, and then
because it touches the soul and it touches the spirit.
Yes, ma'am.
Different from just the knowledge of reading about it or hearing people talk about it. So it really should. I agree with you that it should be a kind of a pilgrimage, like the Mecca situation, where at least once in your lifetime. But do you think that this should be facilitated through schools and through universities and so on, where it's easier, like we make that, or we make the trips to Disneyland.
Exactly. And I think when we have that kind of realignment, understanding and truly understanding and having that identity, then it will, it will show up in other things and how we see ourselves and how we see each other. You know what I mean?
Yes. Well, give us a synopsis of a short story, the plot of it, because you start with the kidnapping from the village.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Talk us through it.
All right. So I wanted to show an experience of what could have happened in officially told, of course, in terms of a young woman being kidnapped from the village and then taken to the fort, and the entire experience of being shackled and chained and even having the mouth bite or the mouth guard, and being carried to the fort, and then being exchanged in a sense, because I didn't want to go into graphic detail in terms of what the real experience that took place. So I touched there, as you could tell, in terms of that one of the enslavers who basically took her as a concubine kind of thing and all that. But I wanted
I like the way you did that, which is you didn't describe that process, because that never needs to be described, but we understood it from the looks and the fear on the one hand and the trepidation on one hand, but still the resilience, as I said before, and the will to survive.
That's right, and that's what I wanted to come through. I wanted that to come through more than anything else, in terms of that she, even though she was going through what she was going through, even though she saw what she saw, even though she understood what was happening around her, I wanted to show that she had the strength and the resilience come through, and then to become who she became at the end. Because someone said, "Oh, it should be longer. It should be like she wrote in a book." I said, "All right."
Well, you have to write chapter 2, because no, I mean, right. So I was reading the end of it over and over again, and if there's ever a cliffhanger. This is it.
So I'm considering, probably making a longer piece. So
yes, but what you've done with this though is that you've caused us to look again at what life might have been. Yeah, exactly. in that place, the dungeon. Every time Sister P and myself go to Elmina, we have to be very careful so we not cuss off everybody who on Elmina, because I get very angry at Elmina. I ask the people and women who come up to me and say, "Oh, no, but you're the people in my ball in there. You're nothing." And I think I had to go through that process, and it took me years to go to Kumasi. And then so yes, but what you've done is that you kind of refocus our attention that after that wickedness of the kidnapping and the young people, young girls, women who were taken into this space, that there was a kind of a living that was pre the plantation and the Maafa. I mean the continuation of the Maafa. And so you talk about the water carrier. So explain to us what this was, this duty then, if you will, that you created. That make a lot of sense.
Yeah, it does, because it's interesting. And would you believe, because one of the things, even though AI, especially like ChatGPT and DeepSeek and all this kind of these platforms now exist, I as a writer, it's a great way of framing and coming up with story ideas.
Yes.
And it was an idea I plucked it. I said, well, I want to write something about, I want to write a short story about the relationship into Jamaica and, and Africa. And I want to write something, interesting and something. And it came back with an actually concept about something that is very unique. It said a lot of stories don't focus on what happened within the fort.
Yes. Within the dungeons. Which is really the dungeons,
Right. That's right. That's right. So I said, let me conjure up something, and I just use the AI as a guide to create a story, or as an idea, conceptualize.
Yeah, to conceptualize that. This is interesting, because it is true that not many stories are focused on the dungeons and the life in the dungeons. That whole process where people who were, if you go inside there and you weigh 150 pounds, the door of no return, which is now the door of return, is so narrow, and them starve you to half your weight so that you could go through that door.
Yeah, that's exactly. And in Cape Coast, there's a small room which I'm suspecting probably be Elmina, which I didn't get to. But at Cape Coast, there was a room which is very small, and it's very low. So if you're a trouble you go into this room.
Yes.
It's a small room. It's probably 100 people.
I know you're meant to die there.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So all those things, and like I said, so the detail of what took place in terms of the experiences is what I'm trying to highlight, and what came up was about water carrier.
Yes.
And it's interesting. I said, it's true, but if someone is going to carry water, I'll probably use an enslaver, but majority of the time I'll use another slave in order to do that. So. Another one of our ancestors. I said, and that's how the whole thing was, being a creative that came together, and I wrote about it. And funny enough, it has been submitted to a competition. But I've yet to hear, how it's done.
Well, please let us know. And it is such a beautiful story, because even though you're writing about that terrible moment in our history and what our young sister, it took me a while because you're Kwame, and I start reading, I think it was a boy, and then my sister she named Abena, and I have to go back and look, and then I see Mawusi coming in, but you really you wrote in the voice and for the perspective of a young girl, and did that brilliantly, so congratulations on that. I think you'll definitely win. And so when you win, please come back so we can talk to you about it. And you can read it, because it's pretty short. How many words?
2,999, I think. I would say it should have been 2,000 words.
Okay. Okay, you have it with you right there, sir?
Lad.
Take a minute and read 1-2 paragraph away, man. Please.
Hold on.
You don't have it.
No, but speaking of which, I'm sure I can find it. I think that one of the things because I was at a book fairy festival over this weekend.
Yes.
Happening today, actually. And it's a pretty good concept in regard to showcasing and highlighting our books, you know?
Yes.
And I think that it's one of those things where we're now being able to, as African people, to tell our story. And I don't think, as a writer, I challenge myself in terms of writing in different genres, as you know, in terms of writing different characters, whether a girl, a boy, a young man, you know? And as writers, we need to do that. And I enjoy doing that.
Yes, yes.
But I found it.
Yeah. Okay, good. We like how you ad-lib yourself into finding it. So,
so
hold on.
I took a stone from the male cell and I took a stone from the female cell.
Yes,
you know what I mean? This is what it's all about. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But me, you know, in terms of writing and the way that I express the story and stuff like that, that's our Africanness and our African into the characterization and into the genres and into the, you know what I mean? So it's an entire thing which I'm really pushing forward. So all my stories, you know, interweave.
Well, thank you for collecting our memories and writing them and putting them out there. This it's I think it's critical that we write. We're about to lose everything, so it's good that we write. Thank you so much, my brother. And when are you leaving again for the Middle East?
November.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but I want to give out a shout out because I send this out to everybody. You know, the bad people firing people locally. So anybody listening, a big shout out to you guys. Everybody's helping in terms of the journey. So you know, man. Thank you, my dear.
Thank you so much, Kwame McPherson. As soon as you win, just let us know and you'll come in studio and read for us, please.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you. Thank you, my brother, Kwame McPherson. There, I'm from.